This is Nick Christopher with Mob Tales. Hope you guys are all doing well. Please like, share, and subscribe. Definitely appreciate the support we've been getting. Today I have a very special guest, a gentleman that I had the pleasure of meeting in Las Vegas at the recent Mob Summit. He's from my neighborhood, pretty much. Sal Polisi, thank you for coming on. We definitely appreciate you being here.
Okay, cool.
Okay, that's good.
Are
Uh,
you in New York? Are you in New York?
yes,
Okay.
yes. Well, just to give people a little bit of a background, you know, Sal was around the Gotti crew and the Gambinos, the Colombos, pretty much almost everybody, pretty much back in the day, going back many, many years. He ran a place called the Sinatra Club back in the day, which a film was made about it, which I loved, which I thought was freaking great. The book is, he had a book called the Sinatra Club, which is amazing. You guys should definitely check it out. It's a great book. A lot of interesting things in there that people never knew about or know about. The Sinatra Club, basically, the film itself gave you a raw version of what it was like in the life. For the guys that before they got made, or some guys that were made, it was probably a very interesting way of looking at it. So my first question to you, Sal, for people who don't really know too much about your background, what drove you to get involved in the life to begin with?
Well, I answer that question many times, and I usually relate to the story of Bronx Tale when the kid was 4 or 5 years old. I was 4 years old, 1949, and my uncle was a swashbuckling type of a gambler. He knew all the wise guys from Brooklyn, and he would take me to crap games, and he would show me around. Of course, in those days, the whole life was very secretive.
Hmm.
But as I grew up, I noticed my uncle had lots of money, uh, fancy cars, you know, women, and eventually in the 60s, he opened up a hotel and a restaurant. And Sonny Franzese actually hung out in that hotel and restaurant because it was at the back gate of Aqueduct Racetrack. So I was only 19, 20 years old, and I would see all these Italian guys, tough guys coming in and out of my uncle's hotel. So I got a touch of what it was like, and that was in the 60s.
So basically, you got the quote unquote wise guy bug at
Yeah,
that point.
yeah, in a way. Yeah, in a
Yeah.
way. Everybody who knew wise guys in those days would see them with pockets full of money. Not everybody had pocketfuls of money, though. Some of the wise guys did. It was wise guys that didn't have any money because in the 60s and early 70s, most of those wise guys weren't drug dealers. They were gamblers. They had bookie operations. But things changed rapidly in the 70s. If anybody can remember, all of a sudden, there was off track betting, there was lotto. So the mob was losing its grip on gambling, and most of the older guys didn't turn to drugs, but they did get involved with drug dealers, and they were shaking them down in a strange way. The young guys, when I was 25 years old, which was 1970, a lot of drug dealers would give wise guys money. For me, I didn't have to do that. I was a bank robber, I was a hijacker, I did all kinds of crime, and I didn't need anything from wise guys. However, I did associate with this one guy, Dominic Cataldo, who taught me the drug business. So secretly, we had a drug business in the early 70s.
Right, I recall that. And from what I understand, when you and Dominic were doing that on the side, a lot of people, some people didn't know, some people might have been aware, just didn't say anything. Um, that was a very risky thing to do back then. Whereas,
Right.
like from what I understand, even Paul, Big Paul, even made an announcement that you deal drugs, you die automatically. There's
Right.
no question. So I find it incredible how you guys were able to get away with it and nobody, sniffing around or saying anything offhandish. Oh yeah, you know what? Yeah, Sal's dealing. Yeah, yeah, Dominic's doing it. I'm really so shocked how you guys got away with it.
Well, there was you just needed one or two guys to move those drugs to, and there was like a network. And of course, in those days, we had a gambling business, so we made believe we made a lot of money with gambling, but it was really the drug business. And when I opened the Sinatra Club in the fall of '71, Dominic and I were secretly dealing drugs, but we never brought the drugs to the Sinatra Club. We had a gambling operation there. But of course, the way things worked out, within a few months, I was involved with Tommy DeSimone, the Gotti crew, and we had these, partnerships with Foxy Girotti, Tommy DeSimone, and myself. We hijacked a lot of trucks and worked with Jimmy Burke. So I knew Jimmy Burke years and years before he did the Lufthansa robbery.
Well, from what I understand, you profited a lot from the hijacking and everything, and you didn't really need to move the drugs at all. It was from what I understand, it, even dealing drugs didn't really excite you. There was no thrill in it. It was just
No.
too easy, And hijacking was a lot more exciting. There was more of a got your blood pumping.
Right.
So for people who don't understand that, for people
Yeah,
never,
I didn't enjoy the drug dealing. It was just a lot of money in it. So matter of fact, I disliked dealing drugs. Hold on a second.
that's okay.
But the excitement was in hijacking trucks, bank robberies, all of that kind of stuff took, a lot of planning. I liked it. It was sort of like a production. And the drug money allowed me to open up businesses. I mean, I had all kinds of businesses and I bought real estate. So eventually I had a million and a half. I got out of New York City, got out of the drug business and left in 1982. Well, the problem is if a guy is in the life, you can take the animal out of the jungle, but the jungle still resides in the animal and you don't alter your spending habits. And so, it didn't take a couple of years. I mean, I spent about $1 million building a racetrack upstate New York, and all the money was gone. And then I left all the possibilities of earning big money. So I had to go back and make a few more drug deals. I say, fortunately for me, luckily, I got arrested, and for drugs, not heroin, cocaine. And eventually, I made a deal. I made a deal with the government. It was all about a corrupt judge. I never set out to testify against John Gotti or Joe Messina, which happened years later. But once you sign a contract with the government, you're indebted to those guys, and you got to read the fine print. So after I testified against the judge, along came Diane Jackalone, the prosecutor, and said, "You're going to be the witness in the first Gotti trial." I go, "Why would I want to be the witness?" "No, you have to be the witness. Aside from the fact that you signed the agreement, you're the best storyteller we got." And that's what she said. And I was the witness in the first Gotti trial. Of course, everybody laughed because they thought Bruce Cutler was a great attorney, but that wasn't how they won the case. Sammy bribed
Yeah,
the juror.
yeah, that's
And
right.
that news came out years later, and I laughed because I warned those suckers, U.S. attorney. They were very naive. I'll tell you that they were naive.
Obviously. Well, if
Yeah.
you were to give us a little bit of I'm interested myself actually. And before John became big, John Sr., before he became big, before he became a name, when he used to hang out at the Sinatra Club, and he was a lousy gambler. He was always losing all the time. And before I even get to the other character I wanted to ask you about, but John Sr. himself, I think you were a bit enamored by him a little bit. The way he stood out, the way he carried himself. Would you say he was a gangster's gangster? Would you think he really oozed that, really represented himself in that way?
He didn't start out that day at that way. I mean, you got to understand he was very um, loyal to Danny and Charlie Fatico. And
Right.
when I met him in 72, he had just come out of jail. He didn't have any money. And years went by before he went back to jail for the McBratney killing. And
Mhm.
eventually, he got made in 76. Well, by that time, I had moved away from the Gambino guys. I was totally entrenched with Cataldo, and I had businesses. I didn't need, John Gotti and Angelo. I mean, I ran into them, but I had no workings with those guys after the Sinatra Club.
Well, I'm saying during the time with them at the Sinatra Club, um, maybe can you give us a little bit of a background of what kind of how he was? Because he changed from that time Sinatra Club to later on what he became
Oh,
was not
oh
even.
yeah, he did. Without a doubt, he changed because when he hung out at the Bergen, which was in the early 70s,
Mhm.
um, he was a certain type of guy. He was never quiet. He was always putting a show on. But maybe 1980, I had a problem with Fat Andy. Fat Andy
Yeah,
went into one
Luciano.
of my stores. He went into one of my stores and he brought a gun in. He tried to shake me down because I had three jewelry stores. And I was behind a cage and I argued with him. He was drunk. And then he left. And I said, "You better come back with a gun and shoot me." But he left. I went to John Gotti that night. And when I got over to the Bergen, Peter was there, Peter Gotti. I
Mhm.
go, "Where's John?" "Oh, he's not here." And I tell you, brother, I want to see him. "You got to make an appointment," he said. I go, "An appointment? Yeah, come tomorrow. He'll be around the corner in the morning." I go, "Where will he be?" "Around the corner." He had another little storefront. So the next day I went there and Peter brought me in. I go, "John, I got a problem with Fat Andy." At this time, John had already become a captain. This is 1980. This is right around after his son Frankie was killed on the mini bike. It was
Yeah,
probably in the summer of '80. And I
right.
sat down with John. I explained the situation. I go, "Look, Fat Andy never liked me because I had a little pizza joint in the '60s, and I was taking action with Dominic Cataldo. He didn't like me, okay, because he couldn't get a piece of that gambling operation because Cataldo was covered by Joe
Mhm.
Broncata, and that's who the boss was after Joe Colombo got shot." And I said, "Look, John, he comes into my store again. I'm not joking. I will have a gun. He's either going to kill me or I'm going to kill him." He said, "Ubat, settle down, go back. There'll be no more trouble." I never heard another word from Fat Andy.
So you're talking about Fanny Ruggiano.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
which I knew. I never
Yes,
had
yes,
any arguments with him, but he had a wild hair up his ass because him and Tony Lee had a little gold joint, and I had three places, and they thought they were going to shake me down. They didn't shake me down. I took a gun and I went and I said, "Hey, look," told John, "he comes to my store. I'm going to kill him or he's going to kill me because I don't have any business with him. He came in there trying to shake me down.
wow. Okay, awesome.
Didn't
Yeah,
work."
yeah, obviously. Well, the other gentleman I want to ask you about is Tommy D. Now, Tommy D, a lot of people don't, I think the Sinatra Club, the little movie that was made, I think we portrayed Tommy D exactly the way he was, the way he looked and the way he acted. I think it was pretty accurate, in my opinion, compared to the Tommy D of Goodfellas.
Well,
Would you say that's
yeah.
true?
Tommy was an unusual guy. I mean, I met him in '71. I went to Robert's Lounge with Dominic. I met Jimmy Burke. I didn't know what was going to happen. But within the next 6 months, when Jimmy came to the Sinatra Course, because Jimmy was a good gambler, Tommy, came along and I got introduced to Tommy. Maybe a few months after that, we had a sit down. It was arranged that Tommy DeSimone, myself, and Foxy Girotti, we could hijack trucks and Jimmy would take the loads, and this is the way we were going to do business. Well, Tommy wasn't radical in '72. Years later, by '73, '74, he was sniffing a lot of cocaine. He was a little paranoid, and I didn't see the killer part of Tommy. And I got to tell you, my first wife went to high school with Tommy, so he wasn't like a stranger. We knew who he was. I knew his wife, Angela. Um, and by the time 73, 74 came, we did a bunch of hijackings. And I took Tommy out and Foxy and showed him how to rob a bank. They don't know anything about robbing banks. I robbed banks with guys who were 60 years old years before that. And I learned all about bank robbery. Of course, the mob guys, wise guys, didn't like bank robbery. A, it brought federal heat, and B, they couldn't buy anything off you. It was, we got the cash and that was it. We didn't have to bring a load of merchandise and sell it. So they couldn't get a piece of the pie. Okay. But Tommy was a good hijacker. I mean, he had the balls of a lion, and we did some real audacious heists.
But if, you know, with Tommy D and I know this bothered you, and I'm sure you wanted to do something about it, but you didn't. The thing with Foxy and Tommy, which I think was kind of a shame, with Tommy's sister. Was there no chance for Foxy to get by this somehow?
I don't know. I went to jail to Lewisburg in July of 74. Foxy was killed Christmas time of 74. So I wasn't even there. I was in Lewisburg. There, right? I was in Lewisburg with Angelo. I was in that room with Paulie Vario, what they showed in Goodfellas. He was slicing the garlic. In that room was Johnny Dio, Joe Piney, Angelo, and Paulie Vario. So I don't know what happened. All I do know is Angelo said, Ubats, don't think you're going to kill Tommy. John and I are going to take care of him. That was in 74. So 4 years went by. And then when they did the Lufthansa heist, I assume, I was staying away from those guys, that they went and they whacked out Tommy. I don't know for sure. Didn't hear any information. I wasn't interested. I had already gotten away from most of the wise guys by 78. I was making a lot of money in drugs. I didn't associate with Jimmy Burke in 78. I didn't.
Well, was there any part of you that wanted, I forgot the word for it right now, to honor Foxy by taking Tommy out? Did you ever have?
Oh yeah. Oh, no doubt. I was in prison with Dave Icavetti, a captain in the Gambino family. And it was a funny thing. In the summer of 75, there was the old West Street detention center. Well, they moved all the guys that were on West Street to the new federal holding facility, MCC, which was located on Park Row that summer. And when I got on the 7th floor, I was with Dave Icavetti, and Icavetti talked me out of trying to kill Tommy. Well, it was a few weeks later, Tommy shows up on the 7th floor with Jimmy Burke. Now I'm playing pinochle with Dave Icavetti, and Tommy and Jimmy Burke are we're playing forehand pinochle. And of course, I had already lost the desire to kill him. I had a long talk with Icavetti. He said, don't do it. You didn't kill anybody. Once you pull the trigger, you can't take it back. It's not worth it. Well, I was only there a few months. I won my case and I got out. And I didn't see Tommy for 3 more years because he was, doing time. He wound up in the halfway house in the fall of 78 in New York. And that's where they started figuring out they were going to hit Lufthansa.
Wow. Okay. Do you think in some capacity, maybe, because this has never really been confirmed, even though it's been shown in the movie, do you think Tommy was taken out by John Sr.? And do you think it was for Billy Batts or for Foxy?
I don't know. I never asked, and I don't want to know. There was so many rumors. There were rumors. First, there was rumors that Tommy Agro did it, and I knew Tommy Agro, by the way. I knew Tommy Agro. I used to go to his place, Sebastian's in Forest Hills. I don't know. I don't know what happened. I didn't ask. There was so much going on in that neighborhood. Right after that heist, there was feds all over the place. At
Mhm.
that time, I had a little deli, and all the guys from the burger would come in and get a sandwich. I just didn't ask. I didn't ask. You weren't going to ask in those
Well, you're not
days what
supposed
happened.
to ask. Yeah, of course not.
Yeah.
Correct. Well, when you say you got after you got arrested, that was sort of like an epiphany, like it saved your life.
Right.
But let's say, sake of argument, did you ever have any kind of desire to actually get to be part of that life, to be a member? Did you ever have that desire?
No,
You always wanted to stay on the
no. There was a lot of things that took place. Cataldo showed me he was killing for money. Angelo wound up getting the guy killed because he took $250,000 for him. It all became about the greed and the money.
Mhm.
Okay. And it was terrible to me that they sold each other out. So, the guys that left the life, I mean, you had a wild and crazy guy, gas pipe, Casso.
No, yeah.
Nobody would ever thought he was going to flip. He winds up flipping and tells the authorities all about the two corrupt New York City cops who
Mhm.
kidnapped, a guy and brought the guy to Castle, and Castle, tortured him and killed him. Well, his name was Heidel.
Yes, right.
Terrible story. Heidel's mother sees the arrest of the two New York City mafia cops and says, they're the guys that took my kid away from my house. And that's how, they got convicted of murder and all. I mean, so everything was falling apart. There was nothing left sacred. There was nothing left with loyalty. There was no more loyalty. So when people think that, this guy flipped, that guy flipped, there was no more life. It was over. The life that we knew in the 60s and 70s was disintegrated by greed and corruption,
I agree with
even
you. I
even
agree.
till today. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's still around today. I mean, it's not wiped out completely, obviously. It's
Yeah.
still out there, but it's not at the same level, like you said, around that time period, 60s and 70s. It's definitely big difference. Um, well, tell us a little bit about the film Sinatra Club. 'Cause I know you mentioned that you're possibly working on something of your own outside of what was already done. 'Cause I remember you mentioned that. Can you fill us in a little bit about it?
But I went into the program in 1985. When I left New York, I had two teenager sons. I had to get them through high school. They both went to high school, went to college, and uh, I took all my experiences. People don't know this. I never once went back to crime. I knew how to buy and sell and trade gold, silver, diamonds, collectibles. I've had resale shops, I had vintage shops. I even invented toys that no one knows about in 1998. So I learned how to make money legitimately and made lots of money. That's what I did. Yes, I went to Hollywood. I learned how to write. I wrote with great writers. Mardick Martin, the guy who wrote Raging Bull and Mean Streets and New York, New York. I worked with him for a couple of years. I worked with Joe Bologna, a terrific writer, and I worked with guys that were in the industry, and I learned a lot about it. But that's not an easy business. That's a very difficult business. And if you think the mob was bad, Hollywood robs you with a pencil.
Yep, that's true.
You
You're
better
right
have
about
an attorney there. So I learned a lot. I made some money. Now I'm doing some work for the Mob Museum. I've done a lot of speaking. But you know what? My next birthday, I'm going to be 80 years old. 80. I
it.
never thought I'd be talking about this life
Well,
50 years ago.
thank God for that. That's great. Um, Now the book is still out, right? Sinatra Club is still available, correct? Which is a great book. Um, are you looking to, like I mentioned earlier in the earlier question, were you looking to do anything with that book to expand it outside of the film that was already made? Were
My
you?
yeah, my agent's probably going to sell the Sinatra Club, but we just finished another manuscript, and the next book is all about the life legally, what I did legally that nobody knows about. Undercover with three different names. I used two names in Hollywood, so there's a lot that I did, I stayed away from crime. I met some criminals along the way, but I was never involved with them. I laughed at them. I mean, Henry Hill and I reconnected in 1992. I wrote 2 pages. I gave it to Henry. He sold this to Kushner Lock. They made a movie with Lorraine Bracco called Get Gotti. So, because Henry didn't even know John Gotti. He didn't know John Gotti. So I wrote 2 pages. I got $30,000. Then I sold another script, but I had different names. So I didn't use the name Sal Polisi. I didn't use the name the government gave me. I had 2 or 3 different names legally, and I paid the taxes.
Good man. Well, my last question before we kind of close up the show. Do you miss the life at all?
No, no. I go to sleep at night quietly. I have a wonderful wife. We've been together about 10 years. I get picked up to speak. Some group in London, they got me talking over there. I did a podcast for a while. I'm not interested in the podcast. You're probably the last podcast I'm ever going to do. I don't like podcasts because you got all these 30-year-old jerky guys that think that you're lying. I never lied one moment on a podcast. I told the truth. And they do nothing but they want to, they want to put you down. I mean, this is the way of America. You look at the debate the other day. That's all Donald Trump did is put down Joe Biden. Well, look, he's an old man. Let him go to sleep and rest. Why do you want to insult everybody online? Why do people want to do that? I don't get it. So that bothers me, and I'm not interested in doing podcasts. I mean, you came to the little show at the Marcos, and I said I'll do this interview. But for me, I'm not much interested in the life anymore. I laugh about it. It's far away. That's all I can say. It's just far away from. I was a young kid at 25, 30. I'd do anything back then.
Yeah,
not today. Not today.
Yeah. Well, look, Sal, I really appreciate you coming on the show. If people wanted to find out more about you or check out your books or whatever, where can they find you? Where would they look?
They could find an email or something. It's easy to find somebody today.
Yeah.
I'll be doing some stuff in the fall at the Mom Museum. I'm booked over there for October, and then I'm doing the guy that interviewed me at DeMarco's. He's gonna have me appear at his brother's restaurant in Vegas. So I'll do a few shows here and there once a month.
Very
And that's
nice.
it. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Well, Sal, listen, thank you very much for coming on the show. I definitely appreciate it. I hope we see each other once more sometime soon. I don't know when. Maybe I'll come to Vegas. Maybe one of your events I'll come to support.
All right. I hope you get a lot of listeners because everybody always wants to know about Tommy.
Yeah, they do. Believe it or not, they do. Well, thanks a lot, Sal. Have a good
All
luck.
right.
Good luck to you, and hope to speak to you soon.
All right. Thanks.